Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Inner Conquest, the world's greatest modern metaphysics channel. Today we're going to be discussing a very cool topic, which is what a Christed mind is. As many people have their perceptions on it, but through the interpretation of metaphysical lenses, we can understand what that means from a actualized standpoint when you are in this experience, how to use your mind in a way that benefits you as opposed to hinder you. So when we talk about a Christed mind, it's important to lay the groundwork for fundamentally what a mind is, right? So when we think of the mind, what we think of is essentially what you could categorize as a fourth dimensional reality, okay? So when we have a third dimensional reality, that's five sensory external based reality, crystallized, you're in it, right? This is third dimensional reality right here, okay? Fourth dimensional reality is essentially what you could call the contents of your mind, right? So if I have my wallet right here, I can also see my wallet in my mind, and I can also feel that wallet as well. I can use what you could call your inner man or inner woman to actually have a sensory experience in a mental realm of me actually feeling the texture of the wallet, taking a card out, etc. So when you have your awareness, you can focus your awareness into different dimensional spaces. So you can be completely focused on an external third dimensional reality. We could be entirely focused on an internal fourth dimensional reality. So when you understand dimensional spacing, you understand that the key that unlocks a different dimensional space is your placement of your awareness, right? So if I place my awareness external, I am essentially focusing, which focus is selective ignorance, on a specific dimension of reality. And then I can retract that and I can put that onto my internal world, and I can see what you would call fourth dimensional reality. So when we're dealing with complexities of life, what happens is because we haven't had a proper education in the dimensional spaces within which our consciousness dwells, most people are completely focused on that third dimensional reality, right? You have a complete saturation of your entire focus and awareness on the external world as is, and you make decisions and assumptions based off of what has been created around you, okay? So as you begin to understand that there's a correlative effect between the contents of your fourth dimensional inner space and the reflected properties external to you, now you can start to understand the link between why certain events in your life unfold due to the inner state within which you're dwelling. That content will be expressed on what Neville Goddard would call the screen of space external to you. So when you begin to understand, first you start to understand the correlation between the internal world and the external world. Then you start to do little experiments. Well, what if I, saw my bank balance is bigger? Or what if I saw this person differently, right? And then you have little breadcrumbs of the reality starting to reflect that. But in the beginning, you lack discipline not because of any innate weakness or trait or anything like that. It's just because you haven't been focused there in a way that gives you the ability to sustain that focus. Additionally, what you're also going up against is the belief that the internal can actually affect the external, right? You have a programming system in this place where you get essentially brought up to take everything at face value on the external and not see it necessarily as a latent reverberation of what you have dwelled within from a conscious state in that what you call fourth dimensional reality, right? So what you have is essentially a place that you come to, Earth, where you don't have a memory. You get your memory wiped when you come in here, and so you don't understand your creative innate ability to influence reality. And then you also have a realm that's slowed down to such a low reverberation that there's a time delay with your creations. So meaning that you may dwell and think of a fight with your boss, and then you go a week and you don't have anything, and then you get into a fight with your boss a week after that. So what happens is you have a misconstrued perception sometimes where it's like, oh, see, I was thinking about this, and then this happened, so this confirmed I was thinking the right way, when in actuality, the creative genesis was the state within which you were dwelling internally, which produced that manifestation, right? A manifestation is just unseen to seen, which is additionally correlative to fourth dimensional reality, saturation to production in a third dimensional realm, okay? Because it's a slowed down reverberation external, but the internal is a faster, more tuned up version. For example, if you have a bicycle in your mind that's blue, you can change that bicycle immediately to red. Whereas in this reality, if I had a bicycle in a third dimensional reality, right in front of me, I have a bicycle and it's red and I want to change it to blue, it's not going to immediately change to blue. There's going to be what you call a bridge of incidents, meaning that I'm going to either get paint or I'm going to get a new bicycle, because I can have that immediately in the fourth dimensional reality because it's more fast and under my control, okay? But this external reality is a slowed down, keyed down version, and it's a byproduct of whatever the contents of that internal fourth dimensional reality are. So as you begin to understand the correlation between the two, you start to take your internal world more seriously, in that you want to organize it and build that mind in accordance with how you want to build it, right? There's no right or wrong way to have the internal composition of your fourth dimensional reality structured, but what it is comprised of are your dominant thoughts that don't have contradictions, which you can categorize as beliefs. So if I have a strong belief that I always run into good drivers when I'm driving, and I don't contradict that, and I completely abandon myself to that assumption and just have it assumed in that fourth dimensional reality, and then I see it play out, evidence of it, and I accept it, I'll create essentially a loop where every single time I go on the road, I'll experience good drivers, right? So the idea is that what you want to do is you want to understand the two tiers of truths, okay? So there are what you could call universal truths, and then there's what you could call perceptual truths, right? And they're both very important, because universal truth is essentially some baseline stuff like this, right? Like, you're a soul in a body. It's very important to understand that you're in a body. You're Tony Stark in an Iron Man suit in this reality, okay? Because if you don't understand that, you are trapped by fear, because essentially if you have this body and this is who you are and this is all you'll ever be, you're extremely vulnerable, because if you lose your hands, you never get hands back, right? But if you understand that you're in a body, and that once, the body's done, Tony Stark flies off and does what Tony Stark wants to do, then now you have a proper perceptual understanding of the constraints and realities of this realm within which you can play within, like a sandbox, right? But if you have that misconstrued, where you think that you're just the body and once you die it's over, then you live an entire reality that is completely based in fear. So you want to get rid of that. You want to understand that you're in a body, your soul is physical, right? But it's keyed at a higher dimension, whereas this body is essentially calibrated to this lower dimension. So it's in many ways meant to limit you, right? So your body is a great limiter, but in the same way that, when you train with a weight vest on, once you leave your body, you have essentially a much stronger soul, and you've garnered new perceptual wisdom about how to create reality. So it's a big advantage if you understand it that way. Now, when you look at your imaginative faculties, you want to understand that a Christed mind is one that prioritizes their own imaginative input over the latent reverberative effects of a created third dimensional reality. And what that means is that if you look at Old Testament type situation, land of Egypt, etc., right? Land of many gods, Israelites leave the land of many gods, right? Follow one God, right? So while that is a story and a narrative within itself, there are components of that are correlative and useful for teaching metaphysical property in this reality as well. It's a dual lens, a dual function story, right? So when you have stories, they are stories, but they also have elements in which they are structured that are meant to basically hide information and relay information that is essential to creating reality in ways that would be able to be dispersed to the masses, but are also hidden from individuals who would want to hide that information from people so that they can maintain power. So when you understand that essentially when the Israelites leave land of many gods, what that is also akin to is that your inner state, right? One God, its name is I Am, is that fourth dimensional mind, right? It's that ability to imagine, right? Because with that ability to imagine, you have authorship over your own soul, meaning that you can imagine solutions. You can see yourself as a version that's improved. You can see things have worked out even in the opposition of everything third dimensionally that has already been created, being chaotic or unwanted or not fulfillment, etc. So through that virtue of your ability to use imagination and through understanding of its ability to influence the physical world, you now have a proper bearing in your capabilities to actualize your thought processes in a third dimensional, latent, keyed down version of reality, right? So as you begin to understand what that means, it means that you start to see yourself as the source of your reality, the centerpiece of your own localized reality, just like everybody else is, right? So when you begin to work with what you could call a Christed mind, it's that you understand that your awareness can be placed on a third dimensional or a fourth dimensional reality at any point in time. So when you run into something that is unfavorable, you just understand that that is just a byproduct of you lingering in an unwanted state of consciousness through either internal dialogue, through imaginative acts, through acceptance of feeling states, identification with feeling states. Big thing is just accepting that from an internal standpoint, that this thing was true before it actually happened. So if you want to take a step back and go back to the boss, right? You have an argument with your boss. You have been dwelling in that argumentative state internally where you see them, you're like getting one up on them, they're doing this, and you're like, this person sucks, whatever. That is a creative Genesis act, right? So you're creating that through your participation in that internal realm. And then when you run into it, that's not the causative point. The causative point was that internal reality within which you dwelled, sustained, and also accepted to be true. You go, oh, my boss is like this. See, I'm arguing with them internal. You would do that from a unconscious standpoint, because unconscious is just another word for unaware. So if I'm unaware that I'm a lemur and every time I pull the lever I get treats, then I get no treats, right? But if I just am and I hit the lever and treats fall down, I go, oh my God, today's the lucky day I get treats, right? So understanding every time you pull the lever, the treats come down. Every time you imagine you're building into the future, that's a core component that you really want to internalize and understand, because what that does is that gives you options, right? So anytime you run into something, oh, you get a bill, you have a dual focus lens in which you can focus your awareness. You can either focus on that bill externally and go, oh, this is true right now, this is na, and you can construct that, right, and use that as a condition to create a state of non-fulfillment, of, oh, this is bad for whatever reason. You can assign that value to it, right, which is what you would do if you're unaware that your internal realm is projected outwards. So what you do once you start to master your mind is you get this and you go, oh, this is actually really good, because this is a latent reverberation of me accepting that I was a version who would experience this regularly. And I didn't doubt it, I didn't contradict it, and it just happened, right? Which is, in essence, perfect manifestational execution. Because when you have manifestational execution, when you're manifesting something, what you're doing is you're accepting it as true internally, and you're dwelling in that state chronically, in the same way where if you dwell in that fight with the boss, you are creating that future event, right? So you want to get really good with your internal world to where as you go throughout your day, you're seeing things external, and if they're really what you like, you're focusing on them. You're going, this is good. This is how it is. You know, if you're getting paid every day, you're like, yeah, I get paid every day. It's amazing. Or if you're really healthy, you're like, yeah, dude, I'm super healthy. I always stay healthy, right? And you're cultivating that internal realm to stay where you want it to stay. But if you have aspects of your life that aren't exactly the way that you want them to be, then what you're doing is you're seeing that external evidence, and then you're choosing your dual focus lens to prioritize your fourth dimensional reality over that third dimensional reality, because you understand that if you continue to focus on and think as if that's a real reality, you're going to recreate that reality over and over and over again. So when the discipline comes into play, you see this, you turn the other cheek, which essentially means you retract your awareness from it, right? Because if you have something really scary external, what you will notice is it's trying to siphon your awareness. It's trying to get your attention. So once you understand that you have the discipline to turn the other cheek or move your awareness at any point in time, you're never trapped unless you think it can trap you. You now have freedom, because now you can immediately see internally the inner man or inner woman having a version of themselves that has already solved that. And you can literally put a blinder to this, because you understand that that external reality is not a causative point. That is an effect point, right? That was a byproduct of the state that you were in and or dwelling in. So once you understand that, now you understand that your awareness, right, can be placed wherever you want it to be. So tactically speaking, if you want the resolution, you are best off removing your awareness from the effect and putting it on a new causative point that will generate the wanted result into the future, because you understand that this is a keyed down reality. So if you were in a keyed up reality, if you were in a fourth dimensional reality where the external reality was also fourth dimensional, you would be able to think of the bicycle as blue and it would just shift colors, right? But in this place, you have that bridge of incidence, which is a built-in innate design to this place to give you an experience of linear time, okay? But the second that you engage in that state, you are creating that now from a new creation point. So understanding that gives you the certainty to stay in that lane of execution of continual imagining in your favor. So as you begin to understand that Christ is representative of that wonderful human imagination through the metaphysical, esoteric lexicon of hidden information within the context of these stories, right, that may or may not have played out the way that they have been described, the hidden meaning behind that is that your imaginative acts can supersede current realities. So you don't get too worried about the external world, because it's like, if you play a video game and you don't do as good as you want, you don't get upset at the score. You just do better with the controller. You just put in better inputs next time. And you understand that the inputs are making the things on the screen move, which ultimately result in the tabulation of the score. So as you get better at playing in the game, you have a much better locus of power, because if you understand yourself as the source of your own localized reality, now you prioritize that fourth dimensional realm of thought over external processes, because you realize that if you do that, you can become essentially a sovereign, individualized creator within your local sphere, meaning that anything that comes and tries to impress itself upon you, limit you, or rule over you, which is the idea of the land of many gods, right? You have all these different things. Well, I can be fit if my diet's good, or I can do this if this. Those conditions that you put on things, you essentially place those judgments. That reality external to you is a expressed version of the internal contents of yourself. So what will happen is those conditions will get mirrored back to you as physicalized limitations, right? Oh, I wish they'd do this, but this, right? If you engage in that conscious state, which is jank and what you could call double-minded, then you're not projecting a clear signal, right? So now your reality is just mirroring that confusion. So as you get more discipline, which is to be a disciple, which is, if you look at Christ, he had 12 disciples, 12 disciplines. What that means is that you're able to stay loyal to your ideal. So if you see a big bank balance and then you get hit with all the stuff that essentially is a byproduct of your old awareness when you're in a poverty state, you have to stand tall in that internal dimension and go, no, my bank account's this. No, my bank account's this. You got to re-edify and just not accept the evidence of your five senses, because that's all created from the previous states that you were dwelling within. So once you get that perfected, now you can walk through the world, you can see even the craziest shit, and you can go into your fourth dimensional reality and see it as revised now and accept that as the truth, which is perfect manifestational evidence, right? Which is creating from the unseen, which is creating from the fourth dimension, which is allowing that fourth dimension to mold your third dimensional reality from your internal locus of focus, your power position, right? You're not going through life reacting. Oh, this is this. Why would you react to an effect, right? You could go and you could butcher the effect and you could make a Frankenstein monster out of all the shit that's already been created. But that means that you have lost that creative essence within you, which is essentially your eternal source of life, which is your eternal body, which is your imaginative faculty. So that's what it means to walk with a Christ in mind. It's a title as much as it is a name, right? It's just that understanding that you have an option to create the reality through, if you want to take a Western look at it, is additionally called mentalism. So understanding that your mental positioning, you could take that into law of attraction. Your vibrational stance is reflected in the reality. So that's why understanding internal components is so important, and also prioritizing them is the pathway to what you could call moksha, liberation, or freedom from the bondage of the external world. So I know you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to leave comments of future videos you'd like. Additionally, if you'd like to work with me, the link tree has my one-on-one coaching and my protocols. So if you want a essentially college level course in 6 weeks on mastering metaphysics, modern metaphysics is for you. You work a one-on-one with me, and then Spartan 1 is all about your body optimization. In this reality, you only get one body. You're in a body. You're in the Iron Man suit. So if that thing sucks, your whole reality sucks. So if you really want to put some effort into making that body, programming your subconscious to just feel fucking great all the time, then that is for you. But feel free to shoot me an email or message me on WhatsApp if you have any questions. More important than any of that, go conquer. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.